Hi, I'm Dr. Nadine Wong. Would you like to know the expression of a man? Well, join me on the Now Talk Show. The Now Talk Show is an intimate conversation with men to highlight the pivotal awakening of his past that has brought him from trials into triumph into the now. The Now Talk Show will be sponsored by the Alabaster Wellness Clinic. Please stay tuned.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so very much for joining us on another awesome show. I am your host, Dr. Nadine Wong. Welcome to the Now Talk Show. The Now Talk Show is a safe platform for men to express themselves. It's basically giving men a voice. And I'm so honored to have another distinguished gentleman by the name of Mr. Tyrone Lewis. We're in for a treat. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to the Now Talk Show, Mr. Tyrone Lewis. Mr. Lewis, welcome to the Now Talk Show.
Thank you, Dr. Wong. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Wow, can I just give you a compliment right off the bat? You look
Absolutely.
absolutely amazing.
Thank you, Dr. Wong. It's
And I
amazing. I look.
go
I was
ahead,
just.
go ahead.
No, I'm saying it's amazing. I don't look like where I came from.
Well, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that. I also can't help but admire the piece of art that you have in the background. Perhaps later on we can. I'm pretty sure there's a story behind it because I can't imagine this beautiful painting behind you and you're not versed in the history. So we're going to save that for later. But Mr. Tyrone Lewis, again, welcome to the Now Talk
Thank you, Dr.
Show.
Wong.
We are so honored to have you on our platform. And Tyrone, if you could be so kind, could you tell the audience who is Tyrone Lewis and where are you coming from?
Tyrone Lewis. Tyrone Lewis. I get St. Mary. Born and raised at the age of 18. I migrated a scholarship to Germany. A matter of fact, I was almost 19 years old.
Uh-huh.
Scholarship went to Germany. Spent almost 8 years in school, and after graduating, I came to the U.S. to work for Jamaican hotels, and that's how all it got started that way. Yes,
So you migrated from Jamaica
yes,
and you were born and raised in St. Mary Highgates.
correct.
Now, you
Yes.
know, we Jamaica is a beautiful island. And of course, as a Jamaican myself, I can only say thumbs up to that. But High Grade St. Mary is not a parish that really gets a lot of highlights
No.
as much as Kingston or Montego Bay. So tell us a little bit more in terms of what was life like in St. Mary? What did you do as a child? What was growing up school like? And first of all, were you in a home with two parents?
No, no. Matter of fact, I was left by matter of fact, I was abandoned by my mom when I was only 3 months old.
Okay.
She was living in Kingston, and she brought me to her see her grandmother one morning, and which ultimately is my great grandmother. Made up the story that I haven't eaten all day. She was going to go to the store, get something for me to eat, and she never came back. So I was raised by my great grandmother and her husband. So I was raised on a farm and about 50 acres of land. So I grew up with bananas and coconuts and pimento and pineapple and donkey, and we even had a horse at one point, and pigs and goats. And so it was a great life, though. It was really a great life. It was awesome.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you highlighted donkey. Were you skilled in riding or like how curious were you with all of those livestocks around you as a
I
child?
was afraid of a donkey. I just didn't like the fact of getting in the back of a donkey, but I was pretty versed in everything. I grew up rough. Grew up. I mean, it was great living though, because growing up on the farm, it's even dietary reason. I was even didn't realize the stuff that a lot of people are paying a lot of money for these days. I grew up eating that stuff. And
Such
even
as?
my yes, and even just sugarcane, as a matter of fact, and bananas and apples, or even avocado, pear. But people paying a
Right.
ton for. A friend of mine told me today she paid like almost $40 for a slice of jackfruit.
Yes, yes, I can
Which is
attest to
crazy. I
that.
can you imagine paying almost $40 for a slice of jackfruit? It's ridiculous. I grew up having maybe about 30 trees on our land. So that was just
Right.
pretty amazing to hear that, and I grew up eating all of that. People
Mm-hmm.
paying a lot of money for that, and it's really was amazing. It was an experience by itself, and I don't think I would trade it for anything else in this world.
So, apart from roaming like you're in the Garden of Eden with the animals,
Right,
what
right.
was school like growing up
Well,
with your grandmother?
I attended Highgate All Age School, and even when I tell my daughter this story, she swear that I'm making this up. There was no school buses, so I would walk to school. I'd
Mm-hmm.
walk 3 miles to school, and I mean it was fun. There was a bunch of us. Everybody walked to school, rich or poor, because we didn't have school buses unless people that lived further away. But in my community of Highgate, we all walked to school in droves, and we knew everyone, and it was just a great way to live. You have camaraderie between each other, and it was a
Mm-hmm.
great way to live. Nobody was. It was just different. It's not like now where you have to watch where your kids are, and you,
Mm-hmm.
you just can't get the kids out of your sight. And I remember even as a kid growing up, hide and seek. We didn't have street lights, hide and seek at nights. Um, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
and we didn't have Sega games. There was no video games. I didn't have a
Mm-hmm.
TV at my home. I would go next door to watch TV. And
Mm-hmm.
so what we had was each other. We had each other's
Right.
friends, and we bond together. We get to know each other very well on a very personal level. And it was just a different, clean way of living.
Right. That's absolutely amazing. So you're in school now. What was life like in school? Because you talk about the rural aspect of the animals and so on, but tell us about life in school, in your community.
Well, life in school, it was no different from any other areas except for the rural areas. It was you go to school, you have. I remember. I want to share this story with you because it was just
Please.
crazy. Um, I growing up, I have a lot of hair, unlike now, and for some reason, for some reason, growing up, you couldn't get me to comb my hair.
Uh-huh.
It was just no, I'm not combing my hair. So I remember one morning I was sent home by the principal to go comb my hair because they
Mm-hmm.
have the vest where they would just run the pencil through your hair, and if it gets stuck at one point, then your hair is not properly combed. So
Uh-huh.
mine was all tangled. So they sent me home, and so
Mm-hmm.
when I got home, I saw my grandfather. He asked, "Why are you home?" I said, "Well, they sent me home to comb my hair." So of course he spanked me. So come
Wow.
in here and spank me. You need to comb my hair. So okay, comb my hair, head back to school. So as I
Uh-huh.
entered school, I saw the vice principal, and she said to me, "Boy, you are late." And I said, "No, they sent me home." She said, "No, you're late," and she spanked me for
Two
being late.
spanking
Yeah,
in one
but
day over your
no, there
hair.
was a third spanking. There was a third spanking. So as I was walking down, I saw the principal. Same thing. "Boy, you're late." I said, "Well, I just got." He said, "I don't care," and I got another spanking. So you guess what happened after that? I started combing my hair. Yes.
So you had one of the picks. Is that what you're using?
Yeah,
The
I had one of the pick. I forgot the name of it. I wanted the pick. I used to use because I had a lot of hair. So,
right.
but that was really a really truly amazing experience growing up.
Mm-hmm.
School was great. I remember outside the school gate, we have all these vendors that would sell everything from drops to Toto. Oh my God, some of the stuff I haven't seen in years. But growing
Mm-hmm.
up, it was great. But it was very rich. The culture was rich. School was rich. I was one of those kids that I was very nerdy.
Okay.
I was very nerdy.
What define nerdy?
I was always one of those kids. I wasn't. I would stay in school. I would be top of my class. I wouldn't play marbles on the street. I wasn't running around. I stayed home for the most part, and reading my book. I remember even growing up as a kid. My step great grandfather, he used to go out and have his alcoholic beverage, come home and have me read the Bible, and that would be every night. And he would have me read the Bible, and he would have his own interpretation of the Bible. And so that's the kind of childhood I have growing up. It was very different from other kids, and not having a lot of not having a lot of material things. And as an adult, I realized, as an adult, that I was rich.
Yes.
I was
Yes.
wealthy. I was
That is so
wealthy.
powerful.
I was
Yes.
wealthy. I just didn't realize how wealthy I was until I
Mm-hmm.
grew up. I migrated and came back to Jamaica. I'm like, wow, I have wealth. I have land. I ate properly. I had someone who cared about me, took care of me. So I was
Mm-hmm.
wealthy and not even knowing how wealthy I was. So it was a
Wow.
great life. It was really a great life.
So take us now on the journey. You got the scholarship. So what was that like when you got the letter, the telegram that you got a scholarship to go to Germany to study? Take us on that journey.
Well, how that came about? Right after high school, I started working in the resort.
Mm-hmm.
I was literally recruited and would start working in the resort. And while I was working in the resort, I there was a few guests one day that was trying to order something. I was a manager trainee. I
Okay.
graduated. I had about 12 CXCs and a couple of GCE back then. I'm 53, so we had CXC and GCE.
Right.
And I started working in the resort, and there was a few guests who were trying to order something, and it turned out they were from Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And the owner was sitting there with me, and I said, I think it's a great idea that I go to Germany to learn German so we could properly service our guests. And they say, you know what, Tyrone, I think that's a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
So I had friends that was living there, and I got connected with the university, and that whole aspect, that's another story by itself, how that came about.
And
Um,
please share it with us.
so it turned out that um, the owner said, okay, we're going to do this. So he
Mm-hmm.
gave me a letter to take to the German embassy in Kingston.
Mm-hmm.
I never forget Mr. Lee Issa was really really one of my motivators. Was really a great friend of mine, and so I
Mm-hmm.
took the letter to the German embassy to see Herrheim. I never forget the name. So when I got there, and he said, okay, yeah, we have schools there, and he said, well, there are universities there that you actually can enroll to
Mm-hmm.
learn the German language because it would help the Jamaican tourism. So I said,
Yes.
okay, all right. So I went to Germany and to learn German. And when
Mm-hmm.
I got there, they had hotel programs. And when I enrolled in the hotel program, I got a full scholarship.
Wow.
Yeah. And even going there, I remember going to the airline. At that time, they had a charter flight from Montego Bay into Dusseldorf, which is an hour and a half from Frankfurt. Because I ended up living in Frankfurt. It was LTU Airlines, and I went to the office in Montego Bay,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to get the ticket. And I'm like, well, I'm an industry person. Do I get a discount? They gave me a ticket, a
Yes.
5-year open ticket, free of cost that that
Wow.
that I would come back every year. So I would go back and forth over the years until I graduated. Now in Germany, now it was so different. I mean, I knew nothing in German. I
Mm-hmm.
knew nothing. I mean, I have friends there, but I knew nothing about the language. And I just started watching TV. I was in school in Lingua was the first language school I enrolled with. Then I changed from in Lingua to Fremdsprachschule, which
Mm-hmm.
I originally I went to Lingua, then went to in Fremdsprachschule. And when I went there and started enrolled for a bachelor's program equivalency, and when I did that, then I enrolled into the hotel school. So I ended up staying in Germany for almost over 8 years, living in Germany for almost 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
Never knew a word in German. Watch a lot of TV, read a newspaper, enroll in classes, enroll in school, and I end up learning German and Dutch, and I picked up other languages while I was there. Because in Europe, everyone speaks at least 3 or 4 different
For different
languages.
languages. Yes.
Yes,
Yes. I heard that.
German, English, French. At least everyone speaks those languages. So it was an experience by itself.
Okay. So take us into the integration of languages. Like you're coming from English and slash patois,
Right,
and now
right.
you are English and German. Please tell us how the verbs start started to make sense in the formulation of the sentences? You said you watched television, you read newspapers, and so on. So, how did that come about?
Well, in Germany, you have three different articles. We
Mm-hmm.
are there, D and das. We have a feminine article, which is D. Das is a neutral article, and then there is a masculine article. And
Mm-hmm.
for each noun is either a neutral noun, a feminine noun, or a masculine noun, and that
Mm-hmm.
change a whole sentence by itself. And then
Wow.
there's two ways of speaking. They have an active way of speaking and a passive way of speaking. So a
Mm-hmm.
passive noun and they also have active noun as well. So that change
Mm-hmm.
a whole. So that's why their language is so much more descriptive than say English. Even though you have the same alphabets, which just
Mm-hmm.
sound differently. Like a J in German, a J in English is upsilon in German. So
Okay.
yeah, so that's a difference. And then you have the umlauts, which changes the way you speak, just like you would have vowels. But you have the umlaut, which changes the certain letters and the pronunciation and the way you pronounce certain words. So it was a whole. There's no comparison, so to speak, because
Okay.
because German versus the English the vocabulary is so small versus German, which is like 10 times larger, 10 times more than English, so to speak.
Wow. So your academic skills, ability, as you call it, a nerd, you just blended well. You've
I
adapted
blended
well.
well. I
Yes.
picked it up just just like that. And
Wow.
it's easy because when you live in the country, you hear it every day, and you
Yes.
hear it all around. Plus, I'm learning it in school. It makes it much easier. I don't think I'm smarter than anyone. I wouldn't say that. It's just that if I think
Mhm.
anyone that lives in a country and they hear it every day, you would learn it eventually.
Eventually.
Yes, you will
Wow.
learn it eventually. Yes.
So you studied in Germany, you accomplished up to your BA, I understand, in
Yes.
business. And did you
No,
go
in
back
hotel
to
management.
in hotel management?
Yes.
Now, did you go back to Jamaica? Tell us about that transition from Germany to where you are right now.
Well, I would go back for over the years, back and forth, because I would still go back to SWEPTA where I was working over the years until I graduated college. And when I graduated college, I was sent to New York
Mm-hmm.
by the hotel to actually be the regional director of sales in New York. So I was living in Manhattan. I never forget, 1992, West 46 between 9th and 10th. I still remember the address, 428 West 46th Street between 9th and 10th Avenue. That was an experience by itself, and I worked with them for a couple of years and worked for another Caribbean-based company called CHC Travel Marketing. And
Mm-hmm.
primarily, what I did, I was a regional manager, and I was promoting Jamaica and other Caribbean as a destination. Back then, you didn't have Expedia, we didn't have all these online travel agencies, so
Mm-hmm.
it was a direct contact. We had a lot of trade shows. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we had a lot of trade shows. We attend trade shows. We are going to travel agencies and do presentations. Selling
Right.
Jamaica as a destination. I had New York State. I had Connecticut, New Jersey. But I had the entire Mid Atlantic as a territory.
Wow. Oh my goodness. My
Promoting,
my, my
promoting.
my cheek hurts. I feel it. We're getting there. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
yeah, yeah. So I, I,
Wow.
I did a lot of traveling, and when the company got moved from um, New York to Florida. I didn't want to move to Florida. I
Mm-hmm.
decided to stay in New York, and I stayed in New York, and I switched over to an American company, and I
Mm-hmm.
went to work for the Lowe's New York City Hotel at 51st and Lexington Avenue, and I
Mm-hmm.
went in as a sales manager, and I was a sales manager double concierge because I was the only German speaking employee in the hotel. We made a lot of German visitors, so I doubled as a director of sales, and in the evening I would work as a concierge, where I would
Mm-hmm.
translate for the guest from English to German and German to English.
So let's talk a bit about the trials,
Okay.
because I can't imagine that there were obvious, um, the obvious. Sometimes when persons, how you look at what comes out of your mouth, a lot of times, some persons have the attitude, the predisposition of an attitude to say, you don't understand my language, or how is it you know my language? So if you could share with us, now you're in New York, you're in a whole other city, and you're more fluent in diverse language. So tell us about some of the trials that you experienced in Manhattan, and translating to, I'm sure, guests of diverse race and culture.
I never forget the story where we had a guest stayed in the hotel. She was from Switzerland, so
Mm,
she because in Germany you get 3 or 4 weeks off as for vacation.
right.
So she was in the hotel for about 3 weeks, and the only communication we had was by phone. And I
Mm-hmm,
heard that when people would tell me whenever I speak German with a British accent,
mm-hmm,
which makes sense because British English. So whenever
right.
I speak German, you have this really thick British accent. I don't know why, but that's what I was told by my friends and everyone that hears me speak German. Anyway, to
Mm-hmm,
make a long story short, I was speaking with her by phone the entire time while she was in the hotel. On
mm-hmm.
her last day, she decided to come and meet me. When
Okay.
this lady came downstairs from her room and came to my office and saw that I was a black person, she said no. I remember nine, nine. I'm like, yeah, it's been Tyrone. She said, nine, nine. I mean, she said, no, no. I'm like, yeah. She couldn't believe it was a black person.
Mm-hmm,
She couldn't believe it was a black person. I even remember in traveling through Germany, a lot of times people would assume that I would know the language and they would say stuff, you know, and I would understand. And then a lot of times I would respond in German to let them know that, hey, I know what you're saying. Okay. So but it happens a few times, but not a lot, not a lot. It's been a great experience living
mm-hmm.
there, and even in the hotel. It was in New York is a melting pot, so it's kind of wasn't surprising for someone to work in a New York City hotel that speak,
Mm-hmm.
especially for a concierge, because in order to be a concierge in a hotel, you have to speak at least two different languages except English. So that's
Okay.
kind of that was the expectation. You have to be multilingual in order to be a concierge. So that was
If you,
kind of expected.
so I'm sorry, I'm leaning because I'm having a little bit of a technical difficulties here, and I don't know why. I've tried. There we go.
Okay.
For whatever reason, my system just decided to slowly shut down. So
Okay.
I'm sorry. Please continue.
Sure. Sure. So, no, we're saying it's kind of the norm or the known that as a concierge in a hotel, you speak more than one languages. So that was kind of the expectation, especially for younger travelers. The older ones wouldn't grasp that, especially um, the older lady from Switzerland. She wasn't expecting that,
Mm-hmm,
especially hearing me speak German and with a British accent and
mm-hmm,
sound like I'm Caucasian. She wasn't expecting that at all. But for the most part, it was a great experience, even in Germany, as I was
mm-hmm.
saying earlier. Um, Traveling on the train or the buses, sometimes you would hear people. I would hear people making reference and to me, and then I would always respond in German, letting them know that I understand what they were saying. But I mean, it wasn't a lot of negative experience. It was a great experience. It was
So
awesome.
so Tyrone, let me understand this.
Sure.
They were speaking about you in a negative way on the
Not
train.
always. Not always. Not always.
Okay, so what were some of the negative things? Let's highlight the
Well,
good and the bad.
when I was leaving Germany towards the end of after the wall came down, I was there for the whole experience. After the
Mm-hmm,
wall came down, in the east and west German, there was no longer East Germany and West Germany. If you remember back in the day, there was East Germany and West Germany. Now they
yes,
have this thing called, it's a German word mean Einigung Gemeinschaft, which means everything comes together.
right.
Einigung is United Germany. So a lot of people from the east came to the west,
Mm-hmm,
and so there was this thing against anyone. It wasn't a black and white thing. It's more of a cultural or a status thing where anyone from another country they didn't like, because they
mm-hmm.
claimed that these people are coming in and taking their jobs. Because
Okay.
remember, East Germany, they were under the communist regime for years until the wall
Right.
came down. So when
Mm-hmm.
that wall came down, then they formed the Einigem Gemeinschaft, and everyone from the East came to the West, and it was one Germany. Then you start having some problems where at one point, I remember my last day in Germany, there was this huge parade when you have the neo-Nazi were actually marching on the street. But
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't that it was a black and white thing. It was a status or a cultural thing where they're thinking or they're saying people from other country was coming in and taking the jobs and taking what was likely theirs, rightly theirs, so to speak. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So they said this behind your back or in front of your face
Yes.
in a language that they assume you
I
didn't.
didn't know. They would
Okay.
make
So
reference. They make reference like, "Who is this foreigner? What is he? What is he doing here?" But they would never. I've never heard anyone. Or Schwarzen is the word for black, and
mm-hmm.
Schwarzen, and I never heard them saying that. There was always, a lot of times they would think I'm American. I don't know why, but they would
Mm-hmm.
think I'm American. But when I speak, they would hear the British accent and they automatically think I'm British, but that was that was a whole experience by itself. It was a very interesting place to live.
So what were some of the good comments that they were quite it was an awakening, a great awakening to know that you understood what they were saying and you carried out a good dialogue.
They appreciate the fact that I lived there and I learned the language,
Mm-hmm.
and I wasn't just there and just going around and not speaking their language. I could identify with them. A lot of Germans did appreciate that
Mm-hmm.
I'm there and I can identify with them culturally or in a linguistic kind of way, and I'm not just walking around and asking questions. It's like even when I remember taking trips to Paris,
Mm-hmm.
everyone speaks English, but they refuse to speak English. They want you to speak the language. If you go
Right.
into the stores, I remember going into the stores or even the restaurants in Paris, everyone, they speak English, but they want you to speak French.
Okay.
It's just one of those things, yes.
So growing up in Jamaica, you spoke about the diverse food that you were exposed to from the land. Now you migrated or you studied in Germany. What culinary skills did you pick up?
Well, in hotel school, you're trained in all aspects of running a hotel.
Mm-hmm.
So you're trained in food and beverage as well. So
Mm-hmm.
you're trained from making a bed to write a budget for the hotel,
Okay.
all
Mm-hmm.
aspects. So I
Mm-hmm.
was trained in all aspects. I was trained to be a chef. But
Okay.
remember, I was raised by my great grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
Mama taught me how to cook.
Okay.
Uh-huh. Mama taught me how to cook. Fetch the firewood, need some flour, make some dumplings, go catch a chicken. So I learned how to cook at a very early age. And I love to cook. So I would
Uh-huh.
always cook. And even when I was married, um, my wife never cooked. I cooked all the time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was the cook all the time. She probably cooked once or twice, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I love to
Wow.
cook. And even started a restaurant at one point when I lived in Pennsylvania, a very
Mm-hmm.
successful restaurant. And one day, some folks came in from the newspaper, the local paper, and I was featured in the newspaper, and the restaurant took off. I did a lot of outside events, so it wasn't just waiting, expecting patron to walk in, but I did a lot of marketing. I did a lot of outside event. Of course, the newspaper article boosts my business by 1,000%.
What was
Because if
it? Do you
you
still have that company? Do you still have that restaurant?
know, the restaurant 15 years ago it was closed, and I
Okay.
had it for about 3 years.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay. So your culinary skills. I think I saw a picture of the your feature in the paper.
yes, yes.
Yes. Okay. So congratulations.
Thank you, thank you.
I think this sounds like a match for Bobby Flay versus Tyrone Lewis.
Uh, what it is, Dr. Wong, I learned, I start fusing everything together.
Mm-hmm.
I was like that mad scientist in the restaurant in my kitchen. For
Mm-hmm.
example, I would have Italian because I learned how to make a really good spaghetti sauce from scratch.
Okay.
from the bay leaf to the olive oil to all of
Mm-hmm.
that. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, and I would fuse like a chicken dish, a curry chicken with pasta,
Mm-hmm.
or I would fuse like that's a lot of things. I would just fuse things together, and it wasn't a Jamaican restaurant, it wasn't a Caribbean restaurant, but it has the Caribbean spices and flavor
Right. Mm-hmm.
from home. I have to put
Mm-hmm.
my DNA in it to make it mine, to make it different. So I sort of, I put my own
So that's an
DNA.
interesting point because Caribbean or Jamaica per se, it's
Yes,
spice. We have the Scotch bonnet. So in
right.
Germany, what's the spice that really stands out?
They a lot of onions, a lot of
Onions. Okay.
onions, and a lot of not spices. Because for me personally, I don't like spicy. My food wasn't hot spicy. It would
Mm-hmm.
be flavored, so to
Flavor.
speak.
Right.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
flavored. It wasn't hot. So the way I cooked the way I like the foods I
Mm-hmm.
like, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the way I cooked, and it started from home.
Mm-hmm.
Basically cooking at home. I remember at times there, I would say, okay, I'm gonna have something at the house, and you'd have 30 people from church show.
Mm.
I remember in the summer times, my home was where everyone would come, and I would just got into cooking, and folks start saying to me, "Hey, Tyrone, you probably need to take this to an establishment. You need to make some money from doing this." I'm like, okay, so I went ahead and acquired a space and started the restaurant, and regardless what people say, always follow your dream,
Mm-hmm.
because I always wanted a restaurant. And even there were the naysayers that would tell me, no, you can't do this. Because, I mean, people did look down at me because of the fact that I was Jamaican, and even back home, there was a lot of folks that would look at me. And even as a kid growing up, they would talk about how, my mom took me, brought me to her grandmother in the market basket and left me. And kids are mean, kids can be very mean. So I grew up having people telling me what I can't do and what
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't do, or what are you doing here, because you're not going to be anything in life. So
Mm-hmm.
so I've always had that determination, like, hey, you know what? I don't care what you tell me, because one of my favorite saying, Dr. Wong, is this, and it says, don't let anyone tell you you can't do something. When the Bible clearly states, I can do all things through
Things to
Christ who gives me
Christ
strength.
give you strength. That's
So
right.
my foundation as a kid, I was raised in the church. My home, Dr. Wong, was literally next to a church.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Literally next to a church. So um, going back to the fact that I was saying, I wasn't a typical kid. I was at the back of the church. I was in church 6 days a week, all day
Okay.
and Sunday, all day and Sunday. So I was
Mm-hmm.
raised in that biblical principle, and I was raised. I'm not saying I was a perfect kid, but I didn't get into trouble. As a matter of fact, I remember I never wanted a kid, I've always said I would never wanted kids out of wedlock.
Right.
And I was married for 4 years, and my daughter was born, and I have one biological daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I raised a bunch of other kids.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and over the years, I fostered about over 30 kids, because I went into a
Wow.
fostering program where I would foster kids. And one of the reasons why, because I remember meeting my dad when I was 13 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And when meeting my dad at age 13, he said, you know what, you're not my child.
Right.
And I said, okay, I really didn't want anything from you, because the reason why I was trying to find my dad is because I realized when it was time for me to take exams, I didn't have a birth certificate.
Okay.
My birth wasn't registered.
Okay.
So I tried to find my mom, and I
Mm-hmm.
did find my mom. And when I went to the house, she wasn't there. And
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't trying to get anything from any of them. All I wanted is to get my birth certificate so I can take my exams, okay, so I can better my life.
Right.
So I ended up meeting my mom when I was 42 years old.
Okay.
So I remember when growing up, and I did common entrance and technical entrance exam, and back then you could do both. And I did both, and I passed both exam, one for St.
Mm-hmm.
Mary High School, one for Dental Technical High School. Of course, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have the ways and the means, because I was living in Highgate. Dental was in Spanish Town. I didn't
Right.
have the ways and means to communicate. So I'm a young kid. I had to go to the school, and I did a transfer. And
Mm-hmm.
I grew up very fast. I grew up where at age 13, basically I lived on my own.
Mm-hmm.
No one was there to really tell me, hey, even though I have my great grandmother, but going to school was my own personal choice. There was never anyone that would tell me, hey, you need to go to school. If anything, they didn't want me to go to school. They wanted me to stay home and work on the farm.
Right.
But I made it the choice. I've always said this is not what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
There is better out there. I want better for me.
So um, did you find a male role model or a mother role model at any point in the church since your mother and father, in a sense, abandoned you?
Not necessarily, because as you know, in church, 90% of um, folks in church are women, and in my church, they're women. They're
That's a
not
good
men.
point.
And so, the only male in the church was like the pastor and the assistant pastor, and it
Mm-hmm.
was a small church. We had like 35 members, and
Mm-hmm.
everyone else were all women. So I didn't grow up
Right.
having, I tell people this all the time. God raised me. God
Can I
raised
stop?
me.
Can I stop you there for a second?
Yes, yes.
You are a now Moses. You know what that means? When you share the story about the children jeering at you because your mother left you, isn't that what Moses' mother did?
Yes,
And she placed him in a basket. Isn't that what the children were saying?
yes.
Your mother left you in the
In the basket.
marketplace
Mm-hmm,
in a basket.
mm-hmm.
So think back then, it's the same concept. And look at the influence, how God used Moses to lead the children out of bondage in spite of. So your story, we're just getting to the meat and potato here. So I think it's official to call you Brother Moses.
I received that.
Oh,
I
okay.
received that.
I think it's fair to say that because your journey has been a Moses journey.
Dr. Wong, I've said this so many times. If someone, first of all, I remember having my first pair of shoes. I was probably 10 years old. I never
At
had shoes.
10 years old.
Yeah, I had my first pair of shoes. Um, so I grew up not having shoes. I didn't have clothing. I grew up in the country. The point I was trying to make is that it blows my mind where God took me
Yes.
or far. I mean, you look at it. If someone had said to me, Tyrone, you'll be where you are today, I would say
Yes.
you're lying. And I cannot take credit for that. It's God.
Mm-hmm.
I growing up, I was never a favorite among the girls. So,
Ah,
so right there and then, I didn't have a girlfriend really growing up
okay.
because of my status.
Mm-hmm.
And not knowing that was a good thing. Because many of my friends growing up, um, when they reached 18, 19, when I was going away, they had 3 or 4 kids.
Right.
I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that I was better than, it's just that God protected me and He kept me from that.
You're Moses.
He kept me from that, Dr. Wong.
Yes. Yes.
I remember growing up where literally, and I share this story with a lot of people and they look at me as if I'm crazy. There are times when I would wake up at 3 and 4 in the morning because I've
Mm-hmm.
been in the hotel for 32 years. I've
Mm-hmm.
worked as um, a manager trainee back home,
Mm-hmm.
a sales manager, director entertainment. When I came to the US, I worked as a general manager for years, an
Mm-hmm.
area director, a regional director of sales and operations for 7 hotels for 5 years. If
Mm-hmm.
someone had said to me, you would have done that with your life, I would have said, no way, that's not possible, not Tyrone. I never thought I would ever live in the US because first thing, I never have family members living in the US. So
Okay.
I was never one of those kids that would get barrel from foreign, as growing up, everybody get the barrel from foreign. I wouldn't get the barrel from foreign because I didn't have family members in the US.
Mm-hmm.
It's only by the grace of God. Because when I graduated from college, and they decided to send me to the US to New York, it was just, and it happened so fast. Because when God is in something, there's no hiccup.
No.
It flows.
Yes.
The wall of Jericho, all you have to do is show up. The wall fell down. All I had to do was show up. And
Just
I
be
know that was
present.
God. All I did
Right.
was show up.
Right. How did you get your first pair of shoes? Who bought it for you? Did you how did you?
Dr. One, I'll be very honest with you.
I want you to be.
Okay. Growing up, we used to go get these bottles, and in the end of the year, everyone they sell these bottles, the glass
Plastic
bottles.
bottles? The plastic ones?
No, not plastic one. Remember irradiated water? Those glass
Okay.
bottles? I
Okay.
used to collect those as a kid. I used to collect them as a kid, and I used to wash them, and I used to sell them.
Okay.
Right across the street from where I lived, there was a grocery store, Mr. Kong. I used to go over to Mr. Kong's shop. I used to work with Mr. Kong. At one point, I was managing Mr. Kong's business at one point.
Right.
I even got to the point where, even at my last year in high school, I had a video store, a cassette rental store. I remember I paid someone to bring back a VCR, big VCR, big looking TV, and I used to go around and show movies. Yes, to different parts. Even I remember in high school, I did that in high school on a Friday. And going back to what you just asked, so I would collect these bottles, and I would sell them, and I would buy my shoes. And I remember when I bought my first pair of shoes, and I started really working. Mr. Kong and I was working in another supermarket. I had my own video store at one point. I remember having a dozen pair of shoes. And right now, Dr. Wong, I love shoes so much that right now I'm embarrassed to tell you how many pairs of shoes.
No. We could go on a challenge here.
I know. I'm embarrassed to tell you, and I'm not doing it for me.
Yes.
I'm doing it for me, not for anyone else.
Right.
Because it's like when I was growing up, and I would go to my neighbor's house to watch TV, and I wasn't allowed inside their house. I would have to stay outside and watch TV. And I've always said, whenever I can, I'm going to do it. And I did. And even when I came and I lived in the US, and even now as a grown man, I literally have a theater in my homes. I would literally have a theater because I always loved movies ever since I was a child. I'm a movie buff. I love music and I love movies. I know I'm going all over.
No. We're strapped in for the ride, because just like Moses, all the waves that were coming back, that were going back and forth, he survived. So thank you for taking us on this journey. And something that just really resonated with me when you said you used to walk to school.
Yes.
So you walked to school without shoes.
Yes, Dr. Wong. I did. On the hot asphalt. But to me, it was norm.
Wow. Okay. How many pairs of shoes do you have now?
I'll inbox you, Dr. Wong.
No. Okay. If it make you feel bad, like I believe I am the Imelda Marcus. Like I love shoes.
Take a guess.
You have, okay, we're talking pairs of, so I personally, I like to color coordinate my shoes.
Me too.
And season, winterize all the various seasons.
Me
so
too.
are we in the same category? Okay,
yes.
So
yes.
More than 500?
500, exactly. Good guess. No, there was a point. There was a point I would buy myself. I would buy 600 pairs of shoes. I haven't bought shoes 500 pairs of shoes. I haven't bought shoes, and I had to restrain myself. I haven't bought shoes in a year. And I was looking recently like, this looks nice. And I'm like, no, I don't need it. I'd rather bless someone else who who's less fortunate. Not I wouldn't say less fortunate. Who can
needs
afford
it?
it?
Yeah, who
Because I would
needs it?
never categorize anyone as being less fortunate.
Less fortunate. It's just
No,
a
I would never do that.
circumstance.
No.
Because just like yourself, you thought it was the norm,
It
perhaps
was
for
a
them.
norm.
Exactly.
To me, it was
Yeah.
norm. It was acceptable. I didn't, because when you don't know, there's nothing to compare.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so that becomes a norm for me because that's what I saw.
Mm-hmm.
I would see, when I went to high school, I was very popular. By that time I got to high school, I was everything, head boy,
So what
prefix.
made you become popular? I mean, I can see why. You're a handsome gentleman, and
No,
you.
I was very smart in school.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I remember back home, people revere you if you're smart.
Mm-hmm.
So because I was smart, people liked that about me.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to do the homework for the rich kids, and they would pay me.
Smart businessman.
So I was an entrepreneur even way before I even had my video store.
You're Moses.
It's nothing but the grace of God.
No, and then this is what we're
And
highlighting.
I'm not going to sit here and take credit for that because it was God.
Yes. Wow. Wow.
It was God.
This is amazing. Your story is amazing. You are a Moses. And just to really see what God has done and is doing.
Yes.
Because let's
He's not
talk
done
about
with me yet.
No, that's where we're going right now. So let's highlight some of the triumphs. So you had shared that you were married for 4 years. You have a biological daughter, and you adopted
20 years.
20 years, and you have adopted several kids.
Yes.
So where are you today? You're a distinguished gentleman. Do I hear wedding bells?
Well, I proposed recently, and she said, yeah.
Okay, no. You have to tell us how.
She said yes.
How did you propose? And how did you know this was the lady?
I've known her for 3 years, over 3 years.
Okay.
And funny story is the moment I saw her.
Where did you see her?
How
did you meet her? Come on, we're at a good theater here. We're in your spot watching a good movie. Set it up for us.
Okay. Online.
Okay.
Online, going through online and on my phone. I'm very techno. I've always had the latest smart device. So I was going through my phone and online, and I'm like, wow, she's nice. And I said, oh my gosh, this is my wife. She just don't know that yet. And I remember there were two friends sitting next to me. Mm-hmm. I'm like, Tyrone, you are crazy. I'm like, no, I'm not crazy. This is my wife right here. Mm-hmm. And I pray to God, and I say, God, this is a woman I would love to be my wife. There's something about her. Mm-hmm. I know she's special. Mm-hmm. I know she's a very special woman, and I would love for her to be my wife. And I spoke it there and then, and I remember I went to a friend's house, and again I said, you know what, I found my wife, and she just don't know that yet, and they all thought I was crazy. Mm-hmm. And I prayed, and I said, God, if this is her, if this is a woman, because you know what I've been through, because I've never married. I was married twice. Mm-hmm. Twice. Mm-hmm. And I would love to have someone that shares my own ethnicity, culture. I would love that. So
have a good dumpling talk.
Some dumpling, come. I love chicken mac and dumpling.
Oh my God!
My favorite food, Dr. Wong. My favorite food is some curry chicken back and dumpling, banana and yellow yam. That's my favorite food. Yeah, straight up. And I love chicken back. I love to chew the bones. That's my favorite food.
Hey, that's where the minerals are, man. So chew on.
Bone marrow, right? Doctor,
that's right.
Bone marrow, right? And next to that, I love some chicken foot soup. I remember.
You were on the farm, so you used to.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
And not only that, but there was a point where after Germany, it brings back to chicken foot. I remember I was calling it chicken feet soup. And people look at me like, chicken feet? We don't say chicken feet. But after I lost I forgot how to speak patois at one point.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember they would laugh at me at a certain point because, I would say stuff like chicken feet, and they're like, no, Tyrone is not chicken feet, it's chicken foot. I'm like, okay, chicken foot food. And I mean, I have other stories that, because, when you learn a language, and it
Yes,
really,
yes,
really messes me up. And
yes.
I remember, um, um, going to my family, and I remember even, I called my mom's house. When my grandmother died, and I went home to bury my grandmother, my great
Mm-hmm.
grandmother, so to speak, and got a hold of my mom's number, and I came back. My ex-wife then called her 6 months after I came back with the number, because I was afraid. As human beings, we're afraid of rejection.
Mm-hmm.
She rejected me once, so I didn't want to get that rejection again. So
Mm-hmm.
I called my mom's house, and I remember my niece answered the phone, and I hear
Mm-hmm.
her running, "Mama, grandma, there's a white man on the phone. There's a white man on the phone," because I just didn't know how to speak it.
Mm-hmm.
But it took me a while hanging out with my cousins, and I
Yeah.
remember my cousins, they would teach me how to speak Patois all over again, because at one point, Dr. Wong, I was speaking close to 8 languages at one point. So
Yes, yes.
my whole vernacular was messed up.
And that's so empowering, because patois is a combination of languages from our slave masters. So
Exactly.
that's amazing. So
Yes.
you got to take us back to the romantic part. We talk about the
Oh,
chicken back and the dumpling, and so let's get back. You need someone of your own culture. So you
yes.
saw this woman, you prophesied that this is the woman you're going to marry. Now you made contact with her 3 years later. How did you pop the question, and how did she say yes?
Um. Oh, she sent me a song one day. Last Christmas. Last Christmas, I was
Mm-hmm.
working. I took a new job in Ocean City, Maryland. Um, I was an area director for a Hyatt hotel, not a Hyatt. I'm sorry, a Marriott hotel and a Hilton hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I've been single for almost 5 years.
Okay.
And she would post things online, but it was never my thing, because I always think, it's so it's just tacky to me to see someone online and say, "Hey, baby, I don't like you." No, it just don't work. "Hey, baby, will you marry me?" She probably think I'm crazy. So I waited, and I prayed, and I asked God. So last Christmas, she sent me a song, and I didn't know who the artist was.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked her who the artist was, and she thought I was kidding. I said, "No, I remember, I don't know who the artist was." But
What
eventually she
song was
told me
this?
it was a Christmas song. It
Okay.
was from, I don't remember the artist, but she eventually told me who the artist was,
Mm-hmm.
and we start talking from then. And but I never, because I'm not one of those men. I don't I don't I'm not aggressive. I don't believe in. I would never ask her for her number, and I wasn't going to tell her if she
Mm-hmm.
never started that conversation with me, Dr. Wong. I probably would
Mm-hmm.
never, because I knew it was God. I would never ever tell her, because I friend her on Facebook, and she accepted my request.
Wow.
But I said, wouldn't tell her. When she sent me that song, and I said, "Hey, I'm here. It's Christmas. I'm by myself." She didn't believe me. I said, "Yeah, I'm by myself. I'm working." And we just start talking, 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 and here we are. And I just asked her one day.
So, Brother Tyrone Lewis, Mr. Moses, how did you say, would you marry me?
It wasn't a big fanfare, Dr. Wong,
Oh,
to be
this is
honest.
a big deal, Moses. Come on. This is a big
It
deal.
wasn't like there was like bells and whistles, and the trumpet was sounding, and we have flyers and parades
Mhm.
and 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 fireworks. I just asked her if she would marry me. Just conversation.
Mhm.
And she looked at me at first, and I said, "Yes, would you marry me?" And he said, "I do."
Um,
I will rather. And but before then I start sending her pictures of rings, like which ring do you like? Which rings? And I start sending her pictures of her rings, and the poor woman, I would send her a dozen ring each day because I was trying to get an idea what she likes.
she likes,
But I
right,
would really
right.
send her all these different rings, and I know she probably thought I was crazy because I was literally send her a different. I would send her six to anywhere from 6 to 12 different kind of rings each day
Hmm.
just to get a feel and to confuse her too, so she would know.
I absolutely love it. You for sure would be, you are a husband. It's just unfortunate the experiences that has come out of two marriages definitely has set the foundation for this great union. And as you said, once God is in it, for sure, you know, his peace passeth all understanding. It's so glorious.
Can I say something, Dr. Wong, for someone
I
who's been
think
there
you
twice?
can.
Um,
Yes.
I think I have the right to say some things when it comes to that, right?
Yes, you do.
I'm not
This
an
is your
expert.
platform.
I'm not an expert, but having God,
Mm,
because without God we're nothing.
that's right.
We're everything that we want to be through Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Because Paul says we're nothing but a filthy rag.
Mm-hmm.
But with God, we can be all we can be.
Right.
So I think in the natural, in the natural, if we try to do it in the natural, it's not going to work. But
Mm-hmm.
once you put God in the middle, the other two times I didn't see God face on this. This is the first time.
That's so powerful.
I know sex before marriage. This is the first time.
That's also powerful.
Yes, this is the first time. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm never going to do that again. I want
Mm-hmm.
God to decide. I want God to help me choose my wife. I'm putting God in the middle. God is all about God. It's all about what He wants for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know when He put me with her and when He I can never go wrong.
You
You
can't.
can never go wrong with having God in the middle, in the center of your life,
Mm-hmm.
guiding and directing you. You know,
Right.
I use this analogy all the time where you think as a parent, you
Mm-hmm.
know, if your child goes out there and make a decision, especially when they're under your care, because we're under the care of Jesus Christ. If you
Mm-hmm.
go out there and make these decisions on your own, without consulting your parents, most likely you are going to get into trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Most likely you might make the wrong decision. It's the same
Mm-hmm.
thing for us. I think as children of God, we need to go to God and ask God for His blessings,
Mm-hmm.
ask God for direction,
Mm-hmm.
ask God to guide us.
Right.
Because a lot of times, womanizing, for example,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of men are womanized. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the reasons why I'm not an expert, when you know God, you know love.
Say that
Because
again,
God is
please.
love. When
No,
you know
please say,
God, you know
please say it
when you
again.
know God, you know how to love.
Exactly. It's
Because
impossible without him.
love doesn't hurt. People
Mm-hmm.
hurt.
That's right.
So a lot of times when we try to do this thing on our own without having the presence of God, that's when they go wrong. But when
Mm-hmm.
we have God in our life, I can guarantee you,
Mm-hmm.
speaking here, you will never ever go wrong.
Clearly. Clearly, when Moses sought God and he gave
Mm.
him the instruction, what is in your hands, Moses? And because of that, that was like,
Yes.
they were able to go forward on what seemed impossible.
Yes.
So I'm not taking it back. I am calling you Moses
And I
because
receive it, Dr. Wong. I
your
receive it.
experience is just that. So I can only see greater things to come because you're literally chosen.
I receive that.
So at the beginning of the show, I asked about this beautiful painting behind you. Can you tell me a little bit? Because I need to know.
Okay. This region of Massachusetts is known, there's a lot of Portuguese influence. So
Mm-hmm.
this painting was done by a local Portuguese artist. Because the
Okay.
hotel, we try to feature local artists. So it
Mm-hmm.
has a Portuguese influence to it. I've been here a month now. I don't know the entire history, but I
Can
know
you
it
say the
has,
name of the hotel?
yes, it's the Best Western, Dartmouth, and I'm the general manager. Yes,
Okay. Okay. Continue.
yes, yes. So it has the Portuguese influence to it because this whole area, um, it borders Rhode Island, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That is powerful.
And
So
even
go ahead.
No, I was just saying, even because earlier you mentioned it, you mentioned challenges, and even in my personal, in my professional life, since I've been living in the U.S. by itself, that was a challenge. Because at one point when I remember, you know, going into these hotels as a general manager, a lot of people look at me like, "What? You are what? You are a black." Yeah, that's a whole not a show by itself, Dr. Wong. The professional side and the challenges that I face, even entering.
So there were clear. You experienced racism.
Of course.
Yeah,
Oh, yes,
clearly.
absolutely.
So
absolutely.
did you experience it from your own kind, or was it persons who were not black?
Both sides.
Both sides. Okay.
Because even working, over the years, because primarily I would work for what happens in this business a lot of times. You have investors and you have owners buy hotels and they have no clue how to run them. So they would hire a management company. And then management company will hire someone like me to run the hotel. So a management company may have 100. The last company I worked for, they have over 5,000 hotels in their portfolio. And I've seen where it's not a level playing field. I'm on the top producers, and I've gotten a lot of awards, but yet I would get a hard time than my counterparts. It wasn't an even playing field. We're not viewed through the same lens. We're not held at the same standards. Our standards, it's like this. It's not even.
Right.
We're held at a different standard.
So how did you push through? What was your focus in terms of getting through overcoming the racism from both aspects, from your own kind and the persons of different culture? What was your focus?
Knowing who I am.
And that is the most important thing.
Knowing who I am.
And that person where you are right now, knowing who you are, what would you tell your younger self who got a whoopee or beaten because your hair, the pencil couldn't go through it, or you were walking to school barefooted for a period of time? What would you tell your younger person, that person right there that just came out?
I wouldn't change anything, Dr. Wong. I wouldn't change anything at all, because I know my steps are ordered and it's divine, and God have me at that place at that time when He wanted me there, because all that I've gone through makes me who I am today. Makes me the man that God calls me to be. So I wouldn't change anything at all. Everything has its purpose.
Right. And that's what you would tell your younger self.
Yes.
Wow. Wouldn't you want to tell your younger self, hey, I got 5 pairs of shoes?
Yeah. 500, yeah.
And counting. Yeah. And counting, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Brother Tyrone Lewis, this is an absolute honor. We have come to the end of the program, and I would like to say the Now Talk Show is sponsored by the Alabaster Wellness Clinic, where we specialize in clinical counseling, integrative medicine, and trichology. Tyrone, on behalf of the Now Talk Show team and the audience, we want to say thank you so very much for sharing the most precious thing you could offer to us, which is your time.
Thank you.
I would like you to come back after you got married. After you got married, because I know that there is a book on the horizon, and I believe your wife would be a great co-author. I believe your wife will be a great co-author. And I know this would be a #1 seller. And of course, it will be translated in all the languages, because this is just how God works, right?
Yes.
He's not going to give you the gifts and don't provide the provisions and the opening. So you were diverse in how many languages? I want you to get ready. Because your book for sure must be translated in the languages that you're fluent, because you've already said it's all because of God. So if He is giving you you're fluent in all these languages, Why not your book?
That's true, Doctor.
So after the honeymoon,
Yes.
I would encourage you to start, okay? And don't just stop at one book.
No,
And then after,
my daughter especially, and even my kids, they always tell me you need to put that in the book, because even there's a lot of layers, Doctor One. There's a lot of things that
I know,
shared. A lot.
I know, I know. And unfortunately, we really only have an hour. And it's okay for you to come back. This
I
is
would love to do that.
a safe platform. The Now Talk Show is a safe platform for men to express themselves. Uh, when men need a voice, um, that was the first connection with God. He did it with men. He did
Yes,
it with a man,
yes,
and then Eve came along and giving the offering the platform for men to use their voice. What it represents is order. But that's the reason men are created on earth, is to
yes,
bring forth order.
yes.
And when you know your voice, or who gives you your voice, and you're following that, then your end is absolutely great. And you've already declared that all the honor, you're giving it to God, and rightfully so. So I am super excited for you. And again, thank you so very much
My
for.
pleasure. My pleasure, Doctor One. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
I almost feel like I want to cry, but I am just so overwhelmed with joy, just looking at God Himself in you. There's just no tears. All I want to do is just say, look at God. To God be the glory. Tyrone Lewis, thank you so very much for
My
coming
pleasure.
on the Now
My
Talk
pleasure.
Show. And again, to our audience, thank you so very much for your time that you have streamed in with us uh, to experience another distinguished gentleman experience of how great God is in his life. So again, thank you for joining the Now Talk Show, and it's sponsored by the Alabaster Wellness Clinic, where we specialize in clinical counseling, integrative medicine, and trichology. Thank you and have a good evening. Brother Tyrone, wait a minute before I sign out. Is there anything you would like to say? Perhaps you could say goodbye in German.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Auf
Bleib gesund.
Wiedersehen.
Alles in Ordnung.
And now you translate.
I just said good night, you know, in German in different ways. Auf
and
Wiedersehen. Bleib gesund. Be healthy. Bis später. See you later.
and did you just want to say a special shout out to your fiance? Not necessarily her name, because she know who she is.
She's watching, and I want to let her know I love her a lot.
Now I'm gonna cry.
She's my soulmate, and I'm so blessed that God has blessed me with an amazing woman like her, and I'm very blessed, man. And I know, and I would never take her for granted, because she just amazing. She brings a lot of light to my life, and just talking about her each day makes me excited. And I want to just say, I want to pay tribute to her as well, thanking her for being in my life.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen, on the Now Talk Show. Thank you again, Brother Tyrone, for being a perfect example of God perfection, because He's definitely in you. He just spoke through you, and may God bless you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for viewing with us and experiencing Tyrone Lewis' great experience of a Moses experience. And here we are just being a witness of how great God is. And I'm sure will continue to be in his life. So thank you so very much for joining the Now Talk Show. Have a good evening.